Hey everyone, it's Gabrielle, and today we're going to go through the 2026 Leaving Cert exam predictions for geography.
Just a quick disclaimer before we begin. These predictions are not guaranteed to come up, so make sure to cover every topic on the course before the exams. These predictions are based off evidence from previous exam years and from predictions given to us by expert teachers. Now, enjoy the video.
So as you may already know, the geography exam is split up into 5 sections. There are the short questions, the physical section, the regional section, the elective section, and the option section. So each of the sections carry 80 marks each, and so they each make up 16% of your overall grade. And then the field trip booklet covers the last 20% of the exam. This year you'll have the choice of doing 2 questions from one section and then completely leaving out the other question. So starting off with the physical geography section, what do you need to know? First and foremost, an Ordnance Survey sketch map question comes up every single year. This means that if you practice this question enough and get really good at drawing a sketch map, then you're basically guaranteed full marks in this question if it comes up. You can practice this question by going through past exam paper questions. And then moving on from that, plate tectonics is a very common question that did not come up last year, so it is very likely to come up this year. This might possibly come up in the form of effects of tectonic activity on the Irish landscape, or it could also come up as describe and explain constructive plate boundaries. The formation of rock is another common question that did not come up last year, so be sure to revise all 3 rock types. In recent years, the questions have combined 2 rock types into one question, and this year be sure to pay particular attention to metamorphic and igneous rock formation. Human interaction with surface processes is another common question that did not come up last year, so be sure to revise it. And every year, the exam seems to alternate between processes of erosion and processes of deposition. Last year, deposition came up, so be sure to note the processes and features of erosion very well for this year's exam. Surface and subsurface features of a karst region should also be revised. And a question that used to be quite common but hasn't been seen on the exam recently is the causes and effects of earthquakes. Maybe it could be worth taking a look at this question because it used to be popular but hasn't come up in recent years. And also do not forget Part A questions, which can ask you basically like anything from the course, including like definitions, diagrams, key processes, major features, etc. And a really effortless way to study for the Part A questions is actually by going through the quizzes on Studyclix. All of our quizzes are based on past exam paper questions, and so if you just want to sit back, relax, and do some quick revision, just go through a couple of quizzes and it will be a really effective use of your time. And also on the quizzes, if you get any question wrong, there'll actually be a little explanation as to why the correct answer is actually correct, so you might not make the same mistakes in the exam. So moving on to the regional section, here Part A questions often include interpreting or analyzing a chart or a graph, so be sure to have practiced this before. You can practice this by going through past exam paper questions. Loads of these type of questions have come up before. And also one thing to note about this section of the exam, like the regional section, the same question has rarely ever come up 2 years in a row. So if you are stuck for time, do not spend too much time revising the questions that came up last year. However, a regional sketch map question has come up every single year, so be sure to practice this before the exam this year. A regional sketch map came up for Ireland last year, so this year you might want to focus on a European region. And as a backup, be sure to know how to do a continental or subcontinental regional sketch map. The concept of a region has come up as a question in itself quite often, so look at how climate and culture may influence the characteristics of a region. Also, a question of a region in industrial decline hasn't come up in a few years, so maybe that could be something you should look over. For the Irish region, note the primary economic activities in both the West and in the Greater Dublin area. This is a very popular question, but it hasn't come up in the last 3 years, so it's worth looking over. Also, sometimes this question has come up focusing solely on agriculture as opposed to like primary activities in general, so be sure to be prepared for that. In terms of the European region, tertiary economic activities hasn't come up in the last 3 years, so it is worth looking over. Particularly, you should know how to write about tourism and transport. For both regions, by the way, like the Paris Basin and the Mezzogiorno. For the continental and subcontinental regions like Brazil or India, be sure to know the secondary and tertiary economic activities. And population distribution has become a popular question recently, so be sure to revise population distribution in Ireland and a European region. A continental/subcontinental population question came up last year, so this might not be a priority to revise for this year's exam. And finally, my biggest piece of advice for this section is don't panic if a question is worded slightly differently to what you were expecting. A lot of the information that you learn in regional geography is kind of overlapping, so you can easily adapt what you know to fit the question. And if you're studying this part of the exam, or literally like any other section of geography, I'd really encourage you to check out our annotated sample answers on Studyclix. The annotations on the sample answers basically break down why one answer got a H1 and another one might have gotten a H2. And you can read the annotations and adapt the feedback into your own answers. I really wish I had this when I was doing Leaving Cert Geography, so be sure to check it out. So moving on to the elective section, here we'll talk about the economic elective. For this part of the exam, we really recommend that you have a strong understanding on how to interpret an ordnance survey map and also an aerial photograph. These type of questions come up every single year, so it is really important for you to have a good understanding of them. And be prepared to discuss multiple factors that may influence economic activities, and pay particular attention to development of economic activities and location of multinational companies. A question on multinational companies comes up every single year and may come up under the topics of the product life cycle, developments in information technology, and also mobility of modern economic activities. A question that has not appeared in some time is how conflict can develop between economic interests and environmental interests. For example, fracking and the Mayo gas terminal. Last year's exam included a question on renewable energies, so it's unlikely to come up again this year. Instead, prepare answers to questions like how economic activities can have an environmental impact, with reference to examples on a local and global scale, such as global warming or acid rain. Make sure to revise sustainability as well, because it is a common topic but did not appear on last year's paper. So be ready for questions like examine how economic activities can be developed sustainably in order to control their environmental impact. And lastly, you should have a look at measuring development, like the gross national product and the Human Development Index. It is a popular question that did not appear on last year's paper. And also the impact of globalization on a developing economy hasn't come up in recent years, so it might be useful to have an answer on this in your pocket in case it shows up this year. And then finally, moving on to the options section, here we'll discuss geoecology. Across the entirety of the paper, this section includes one question that you answer that will be worth 80 marks, so 16% of your exam. So choose the question you'll answer really carefully. It is divided into two parts, soil and the biome. Some students take the risk of preparing only one of these, which I understand because there's so much to learn off, but doing this is really risky. If you choose to do this, make sure you know your topic extremely well, because sometimes one question might appear a little bit more difficult than the other, and by doing this you might end up stuck with the difficult question. For soil, we recommend preparing answers on soil erosion and the impact of human activity, or the positive and negative effects of human activity on soil. For the biome, human activity was examined last year, so it's unlikely to be repeated this year. Therefore, you might want to focus on being able to describe and explain the climate, soil, plant life, animal life in one biome. You might also want to prepare an answer on how animals and plants may adapt to that one specific biome. So overall, my best piece of advice for Leaving Cert Geography is get good at time management. There is so much to write in Leaving Cert Geography and so many questions to answer, so be sure not to spend too much time on one question. Stick to the allocated times per question. If you don't pay attention to the time, you might run out of time to answer really important questions that are worth a lot of marks. I would personally recommend starting with the short questions because those are really quick to do, and then move on to your strongest section. But keep in mind that the option question is worth 16% of your exam, so do not leave this till the end of the exam, just in case you run out of time and then lose a ton of marks. And this might sound a bit basic, but it catches out so many students every single year. You should come prepared for the exam, meaning you should have all of your materials with you. For example, you need pens, pencils, a long ruler, coloring pencils, a calculator, and a watch to track your time. So if this video helped you, please be sure to leave a like so you can find it in the future and look over it before your exams. And be sure to check out our other prediction videos for subjects like Irish, maths, and biology. I really hope this video helps, and best of luck with the geography study. Bye!